Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Podfluxxx, episode number 62. Ricky Reyes, I feel like we just did this, but here we are, back again. It's a Sunday evening. We were late last week. We're going to be early this week, so that's exciting. But before we get started here, I want to tell you a little bit about the VPW show last night.
Oh.
So we had JD came and hung out. Tibbs came and hung out.
Oh.
And we had a fatal four-way for the VPW title. And these guys came up with such a good finish, Ricky. And the timing had to be absolutely perfect. Right? So, like, Eric hits a finish in this four-way, or like one guy hits a finish on Eric, and then another guy hits a finish, and then these two other guys go into what they're doing for the finish, so all eyes are on them. And Desmond Cole hits his deal, goes over, and starts to cover the champion, but a second before he gets there, the other Weasley heel on the ground crawled over while nobody was paying attention to him and threw an arm over Eric. So here comes the ref. 1, after a bump. 2, 3. The place goes nuts because they think Desmond Cole just won the VPW title. And then the referee goes and gets the belt, and the ring announcer goes, "Here is your winner, and new," and everybody's waiting for Desmond Cole, and he goes, "Leo Sparrow," and the place went into an uproar, and it was so beautifully timed, because that was like the one thing when they were talking about it with me beforehand that I was worried about. I was like, your cover needs to be on 2 when their cover is on 3, but the way it came off, dude, it was immaculate.
That's awesome.
And the crowd ate it up.
Nice.
And I was pretty stoked on that. But anyway, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Not any of that. Just hanging out.
All right, well, let's talk about some stuff that did go on in the neck of the woods that you were in at one time when things were happening there. And that brings us back to our deep dive of Lucha Underground. Now, where we left off last week, we kind of talked about your first tag match on the second episode. We went a little bit into the Big Rick and Sexy Star issues, right?
Yeah.
And then we talked a little bit about how you guys operated the first 2 episodes on a skeleton crew. But now, coming out of episode 3 and going into episode 4, starting to notice that you've got some Mexicans here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're getting Phoenix and Pentagon and King Cuerno and Drago. Go ahead. You can just tell me how to say that one.
Drago.
All right. Yeah. So the dynamic is now on, and I'm assuming this is like the 3rd or 4th day of taping here?
Yeah, yes.
So now the dynamic has changed a little bit. You've added some new roster members here. You say you started with how many?
We had 13 total in the locker room when we started.
Okay, and now we're expanding. So now talk to me a little bit about the dynamic now that the AAA guys are basically all here.
I mean, everybody was pretty excited, a lot of us, like, I was familiar with a lot of the guys. I maybe did not know everything about them, but I was at least familiar with some of them. So for me, I mean, I always look at it like just new opponents to work with, So I was looking forward to it. And whatever was going to spice up, the show. We had good talent already, but we had very few AAA guys and girls. Like we had Sexy and we had Mil Muertes, and we had a handful, but the flyers and the guys they really wanted to highlight were going to be in this batch that finally came, and it was just basically a visa issue. They just didn't get them on time, so they came in a couple weeks later. So I mean, I was excited. I don't know how everybody else felt, because when you're in that environment, it could work one way or the other. I look at it like a guy like me looks at it as a positive because it's someone to work with. Other guys are going to look at it like, well, it's somebody going to take my top spot, or I was supposed to be the flyer, or I was the highlighted guy. Now these guys are, the shiny new toys. So, I mean, for me, I was excited because I always felt like I was going to bring a true working heel character to the show, and nobody wanted to do that. I knew once we were dealing with a Lucha Libre promotion, nobody really wanted to be a heel unless it was going to be like Pedro Aguayo Jr. or something coming in, like an elite heel, and I was positive he wasn't coming in, so I wasn't too worried. And and I mean, I'm confident in my own, in my own work, so I really wasn't worried. Some people I think kind of looked at it like, what do they need so many, mask guys? And, so, it turned into that after a while, bit of crybabies.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure you knew that nobody was going to come from south of the border and do what you do.
Right.
Because you're so different than what they all are to begin with.
Yeah.
No matter who came up or came over or got hired, they weren't really going to be doing the same kind of thing that you were doing. So, now you guys did not have a match on the third episode. So then fast forwarding to get to the crew, the next time we see you guys on the fourth episode where Johnny Mundo defeats Big Rick. Were you guys out there with Rick for that match?
I don't remember that.
Okay. I mean, I'm going off of Wikipedia results here.
Yeah, maybe we ran in or something. I don't.
You guys were involved with his Boyle Heights street fight in the next episode with Prince Puma.
Yeah.
Do you recall that?
I do. I think that was the one where we caught Ricochet I caught him on a dive, and he sliced my forehead with his elbow. And then I think that's when they almost had a guy jump the rail after us, and security had to push back like 3 or 4 fans. And that's the shot that they made into like an advertisement where I had the stick in my mouth.
Yes.
And I was bleeding because I remember I remember that one where Ricochet had said, "Oh, I'm gonna come out, whatever. We're gonna do this," and then he said I was gonna hit a dive, and I said, "Okay." And he told me what it was. He was like, "Oh, it's gonna be like the handspring, like the great Sasuke backflip dive." And I said, "Oh, okay." So when he does that, he runs, but he cartwheels. Well, when he cartwheels, he goes to one side, right? Like the side that he's if he starts his cartwheel with his right hand, which he does, I have to move left to catch him, right? Because he's gonna be my left, yeah, So I remember us being out there, and all 3 of us were supposed to catch him, but I was the only one that caught him. And when I caught him, his elbow came down, and it just cut me right on my eyebrow. So I remember like catching him. He came back into the ring, and there's a part where he's grabbing his elbow, like, damn, like that hurt. And and I remember Cholo looking at me like kind of confused, and he was like, "Man, are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm fine. Why?" And he goes, "You're bleeding." And I was like, "Really?" And then I like checked, and I was like, "Oh man, I am bleeding." Like I didn't know how bad it was, but it was pretty bad. Well, we start the beat down. We start, getting our heat or whatever. Well, there's this like, group of tough guys in the crowd, and they're kind of like giving us shit. So we start playing to them a little bit. Well, I guess the one guy kind of took it personal and was like stepping over the rail, like he was gonna come in, like there was an upper deck part, like he wasn't gonna jump down, obviously, but we were like, come on, and then finally we did the beat down. I remember I grabbed the stick and I just like was like staring at him, like inviting him in or whatever. And then I saw the camera guy like, right under me, giving me the thumbs up, like keep going. So I kind of like paused for a second, give him a moment, and then he came to the back, and he was like, the camera guy was like, "Oh man, that was an amazing shot." And then they ended up using that as a footage or advertisement or whatever. But I remember after that, DJ came to the back, and he says this, and he had the kendo stick. He goes, "You come out every night with this kendo stick from now on." He goes, "This is your thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then it, obviously became that. So
that's pretty cool. I was just watching. I was looking for a clip from the match before we started, and I found the clip that went into the dive. So he does something to Rick, and then Cholo slides in, and he does something to Cholo, and then you slide in while he's already mid springboard, and you just put your right arm up in the air, and he turns his springboard into like some overheaded Mexican arm drag, and then you slide out to the floor, and then everybody comes out, and he goes for the dive, and that's where the clip ends. But it almost killed me just watching you go in the ring and then literally just go and then take a bump. Oh God. So after that episode, in the next episode, Big Rick signs Cueto's contract. Okay? So now you guys are getting involved here in some storyline aspect. Catch us up on what's going on here for your storyline.
I think that was for the 100,000. That might be leading into the ladder match, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So right. I don't know.
The next episode is the $100,000 ladder match.
Yeah. So that was for that. Yeah. So So now we're Rick's heaters, So and then the ladder match is where we introduce B-Boy into the group. But prior to that, bringing B-Boy into the group, we did a 6-man together. And that's where they came up with the idea of like breaking the crew off to be its own thing, and then Big Rick doing his own thing by himself. So that kind of started there, like the idea of it there.
So how the hell did B-Boy get this job?
He's a local.
I understand that, right? There's also a local guy that works at Walmart who probably could have done this.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I know look-wise and gear-wise, I guess he just kind of fit into what they wanted. That's why we did the dark match. Everyone had turns doing dark matches, There was usually at least two dark matches per taped episode. So if when we started doing 2 episodes a day, you're talking about now 4 dark matches. Right. So every dark match had its purpose. It was to look at something. It was to try something. There were specific breakdowns of the dark matches. It was like, hey, this match is for, we want to see more Jeff Cobb. So we're going to put the crew in there so he can beat up all 3 of you guys, So basically, whatever Jeff wants to do, can we get a look at what his stuff looks like, And so that's how guys would get hired. Guys, hey, can you wear this mask? Can you wear this gimmick? We want to see what it looks like, and how the crowd reacts to it. So that was the purpose for all those dark matches.
Now, to come off topic of the actual in-show stuff, back to the production. On the clip I was watching before, I noticed that the lighting, it was lit very dark, the building, right? Except for the ringside area. And then in my mind, in my memory, I remember from watching later episodes of season 1, I remember it being bright and being able to see everything.
Yeah.
Be able to see all the fans, all the posters, and the gimmicks and propaganda all over the building. Being able to see the difference in the levels of the seating.
Yep.
Do you know offhand if there was any reason why the early episodes were lit differently than the later stuff?
I'm not 100%, like, I didn't hear specifically why, but I know that they were starting to light it up a little bit more for the fans, because we went from, not everybody really knew what it was and was too excited about it, to where the fans became the story of the temple, right? Like how rowdy it got and how insane the matches were and how they reacted to them. So I think they wanted to highlight that more and more. Plus, I remember, like from being there from the first day, like there was no standing fans. There are very few. There may have been a few that walked up there and just like stood there for a little bit, but
Right.
in later episodes and later seasons, man, because we did some entrances where we came out from the back, from the top, and we had to like push our way through just to get down to the stairs, to come down, because we had one area on one side where the baby faces would come, and then we had the back, the darker corner where it had like the cage and stuff, where we shot vignettes back there, and that's where we would usually come out of. So and it was just like mobbed with people. Like they figured out what capacity would be in that particular setting, and then they just started filling that up later.
That's pretty cool. Now, the backstage, was there a gorilla position? Was there some place besides the truck where people were set up with monitors and headsets and we're doing the technical shit that needed to be done for the show, but right near where the action happens?
No, not here. So we had the production people were going to give us our cues that were connected to the truck. So the hallway, the long hallway on the bottom, that had like, a guy connected to the truck, and he was going to give you your 3, 2, 1, go, just because they had time to smoke, and then the lights and everything, and then you would come out at the perfect time. Upstairs and around the corners, the 2 different sides on the upstairs entrances, same thing. You just had somebody that was radioed into the truck. So everything was operated through the truck. We had no main gorilla area at all.
So wait a minute. You're telling me if you wanted to watch somebody else's match, did you have to go, sneak a peek? It was a sellout at the curtain if Big Rick and Sexy Star are out there, or
no, because we had monitors in the back in the locker rooms. We had a couple of big screens in the back, and yeah, like sometimes if you wanted it, like when we had the big debuts, nobody told us when Del Rio. I don't know if this is jumping too far ahead. Nobody told us when Del Rio was coming, and no one told us when Rey was coming. But we had heard rumors. and then there was like these long pauses during the show when they were dark. So they had everything set up, and then there was like these moments where it was like a 2 or 3 minute where what's her name, Melissa, she would have like the ring announcements. Like
Right.
she would get a card from like one of the executives, and she would just walk into the ring, and she would just stand there. And then that's when we kind of knew, oh shit, it's happening. So we'd all run downstairs because we wanted to see how the crowd was going to be. And you just kind of waited, um, for it to happen. But we wouldn't see them, but we had a good idea of when they were coming.
All right. I have a question of something that doesn't involve you so much at all, actually. But you were there for it. It was the night you guys had, I guess, a battle royal that you were in. But before the battle royal, there was a 10-way match. Do you recall that? With Phoenix,
Sounds
Pentagon, and it was a bunch of the AAA guys.
okay.
Big Rick was in it. Son of Havoc was in it. Prince Puma, Masquerita Sagrada. Yeah, I just wonder how a 10-way match comes off and how you do it before a battle royal.
Not well. I'm not sure if that's the one they had to redo because that sounds really familiar. They may have had to do that. That may have been the one they had to redo the next night. It was so bad. So that tells you that. Yeah, those matches were difficult, because I mean, I'm not sure if even DJ really understood how complicated the lucha libre style wrestlers are. I'm sure he didn't. Coming from WWE, but that just sounds that I'm almost positive that's the one they had to redo. That was just awful. So it doesn't come off well, as you can imagine.
Let's talk about DJ for a little while here. So DJ coming from WWE, but that's where his career uh for that's where all of his wrestling experience came from, correct?
Yes.
And before that he was just like a television writer.
Correct. Yeah.
So, and he, I don't know, was if it was 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. He wasn't with WWE for a very long time. The first time he was there, correct?
I think he was there for a while, for like 7 years, I think.
Okay, so still that's 7 years. So that's pretty good. Where was his wrestling knowledge? Like, what did he like? Obviously, you don't work for WWE for 7 years and not come out of there knowing what you're talking about to an extent of the WWE level, right? But like, as far as how much of his wrestling knowledge or IQ even really applied to Lucha Underground, did you see where he was learning the differences as you guys were learning? Like everybody was kind of one hand washing the. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, once he took on this project, he told me that he kind of did like a deep dive into AAA at least. So the difference between AAA and CMLL is AAA is more WWE like. It's more character driven, it's more storyline driven, like longer stories. CMLL would be more of
Jim Crockett.
yeah, it's more like classic wrestling, like wrestle for the belt, wrestle for the win, more in ring. Everything's done in ring. There's very few angles shot, just in general, right? There's a lot of promos leading up before and after the matches. CMLL, you do like a post match interview, and then you set up your your next match through that, right? Where AAA is the opposite, more story based. So he said that he started to learn a lot about Lucha Libre through, diving into AAA's history and what they're currently doing and what their, who their top guys are now. Also, he didn't really need to understand AAA that much because he was told that Lucha Underground was its own thing. So, although AAA was influenced, their style of wrestling and everything was influenced here, Lucha Underground was its own entity by itself. So he needed it to be what he wanted it to be. So he did the work as far as like trying to understand them more. But realistically, they needed to adapt to him. So he didn't really need to do that. He just found it interesting, and out of courtesy, he did that to understand AAA a little bit more. But ultimately, Lucha Underground was its own thing. So it really was DJ's vision.
But were there like if he wrote something, right? Or like he set something up and it came off bad. And it didn't come off bad because of the guys, it came off bad because it's just maybe not the way it should have been done or should have been written or presented. Like, would he watch something that came off poorly and go, ooh, that came off like shit and that's my fault? Like, was he able to recognize one of his own mistakes while it was occurring? Is what I'm wondering. Because there are a lot of people who can't do that are in creative positions.
Right. I don't really know if he ever admitted openly to other people. I can speak for with the B-boy situation where he was like, it looked good and we thought it was going to work and we thought it was working, but this isn't going to work. A lot of that had to do with the people around him as well, kind of vouching for our situation that Cholo and I were fighting with, was like Chavo, where he's like, look, there's 3 of them, but 2 of them are holding up, the work end here, and the other one's kind of dragging behind. Right. Vampiro brought it up. Chavo, I mean, the conversation we ultimately had was Cholo, me, DJ, Vampiro, and Chavo all in the office. And Vampiro was like, all right, fuck it. This is what's going on. Boom, boom, boom. This is why you're fucked. And then we just sat there like, yeah, we told you that, and then it turned into Chavo saying, we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it. Here's how we're going to fix it.
Okay, wait. So that was going to be my next question. So Chavo was the one who was like, I know, we'll just kill him.
It wasn't, I think DJ thought of killing him was the idea it came up with, they would kill him, but Vampiro just put it out on blast, like everything that we had been talking about behind separately, like yeah. It was a little bit odd where Vampiro's like, how's the crew doing? Right. And then me and Cholo are always together because we're like best friends there, so we're we eat together, we figure out the match together because like I said, mentally, I would put you in that same category of like, I can have wrestling conversations with somebody that's on my level of psychology, right? Like this stuff has to make sense. So there's only so much stupidity I can take. So me, I could hang out with Cholo all day long because when we watch something, we see it the same way where, like if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, here's why. And we could both say, yeah, you're right. Or yes, that's what I was thinking. Or, so we were never really around Benny much. He was off doing whatever the fuck he was. I mean, you know, he wasn't working out, that's for sure. You know, so I don't know what he was doing. What he was doing was smoozing and kissing ass is what he was doing. Like he was one of those guys.
Right.
So, and that's the opposite of me, right? So like, you know, Vampiro would come over and like, how's the crew? And we're like, we're good, you know. And he would say something like, because you can see through Benny's work, it was not good, you know, and that's where they were having a problem. It also, to his defense, Cholo and I, you know, are good. So, you know, basically he just wasn't up to our level, but he didn't care about that. You know, he didn't care about getting better. He thought he was good enough just because he was there, and he was not, you know. So I don't know whose actual idea it was to kill him. I think it was DJ's, where he's just like, because that he's the one that told me. He was like, you know, it was like in passing too. It was like, you know, when we didn't win the belts, when we were told we were going to, we felt like it made us look bad. And then they tried to fix that with putting us in a tag match and then getting the win and set up the ladder match for the belts. And then I stood up and I was like, how are we going to come out at the end of a tournament and still lose? We look like bitches. And, you know, and then they were like, all right, the next night you and Cholo will wrestle Son of Havoc and Angelico, and you'll beat them clean. And then we'll go into the title match, which will be the ladder match. And I was like, oh, okay. And then what? And then Chavo goes, you'll be with me. And then we were like, okay, cool. And then in passing later, DJ was like, oh yeah, you guys are going to kill Benny. And he just walks away. And I was like, sweet, you know. And then we didn't get the script until the day of shooting that scene because he didn't want it out early. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like even for Vampiro to come up to you and be like, "Hey, how's things with the crew?" Like,
yeah,
he was looking for one of you guys to be like, "Well, fucking Benny."
Yes.
But to your credit, you kind of just was like, "Oh, everything is all good." But yeah, they were,
because everybody knew, right? I mean,
yeah.
This was by mid-season. It was clear. You know, you can see who was up, who was down. You know, who we were going to weed out, and so forth. You know, so all these things were in play already. You know.
Yeah, but I asked the question about DJ because I'm just looking at, like, you have the 10-way match, and then after the 10-way match, you have the battle royal. And then you've got, after that, you've got the winner of the battle royal fighting the winner of the 10-way match. So I can see what his creative beat was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know why you would have put all of that right one after another. You know, and that's...
Yeah, I mean, we were an hour show too, so you know, he's just trying
matches and maybe a promo or two.
Right. He's just trying to get everybody out there and some work. Like, you know, this is the pre-show WrestleMania Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
Yeah.
You know, 40 people. Yeah, fuck it. Bring your family in too, type of thing. Let's get everybody on the show situation.
So then after that, that brings us up to episode 9, which is the Aztec Warfare. Okay, so do you want to explain to us how the Aztec Warfare worked to crown the inaugural Lucha Underground champion, rather?
So that was like it was almost like a Royal Rumble style, right?
Yeah.
And then but pinfall submission, right?
Right.
Yes.
I mean, you were in it.
Yeah. So that's basically what that was. That was fun. You know, it's our job to make that chicken salad, right? So we just didn't want to.
The whole episode.
Yes. Yeah. So, which was a cool concept, I thought, because if you want to see a certain wrestler, you had to stay in tune to watch the show. And then you wanted to see at the end who was going to win. So it's an angle all through the whole hour. So We thought it was cool. We thought it was unique. You know, it was just a matter of, you didn't want, obviously, being a wrestler, like, you understand, like, you don't want maybe more than what, 6 people in there at one time.
Right.
So you really had to, like, your time cues were important. So you knew, like, okay, once this person came in, you know, these two had to go to a finish. This guy had to go home, you know, and then, you know, so you were kind of, it was a hurry up and wait situation, right? Get to the ring, shine up, whatever, boom, boom, boom. Then you're just kind of waiting around for your cue, and then pop up, hit a big finish, 1, 2, 3, and then roll out of the ring. So we liked it because we thought, okay, this is something brand new, you know, that we were going to write the history books. And so I think that's the match that did Morrison beat me, I think.
I don't have an order of eliminations here.
Okay. Morrison, it was either Morrison or Ricochet beat me, but I remember they didn't remember the spot that we had, because it was so, I think they were doing like the entire someone did the entire match. I don't know who it was exactly, but they were in there and they did finishes with everything. So I think it was Ricochet, and I told whoever it was, I told him, don't worry, it's basically nothing. I'll call it to you out there. Don't, you're gonna beat me with this thing. I'll tell you how to get there, you know.
He's got 14 other finishes to remember. Why?
Yeah. Why overcomplicate mine, right? And I'm like getting eliminated 7th or whatever. Who cares, right? So I just wanted to make it super easy for them. But yeah, so whoever beat me or whatever, I can't remember which one of those two it was, but it was like, oh, give me a step up Rana, I'll set up, and then give me the knee or give me the shot, whatever. But it was super easy. If you're a real pro, those type of matches are easy because you're just kind of waiting around for your cue.
Yeah.
So, you know, so everyone that wanted to get through it got through it just fine. Everybody that want to make it complicated probably had some hiccups in there.
All right. So I want you to dig in your memory here for me, all right? So between the Battle Royal and then the Aztec Warfare, you're starting to mix it up with some players here that you've probably never come across before in your career. You got Mil Muertes, Sexy Star, Pimpinella, Chavo, all right, Phoenix, King Cuerno, Drago, fucking Pentagon Jr., Mascarilla Sagrada, El Mariachi, whatever. Just a bunch of dudes and girls that you've never had the chance to cross paths with. After these two kind of matches, do you recall, like, after they were over, kind of being like, oh man, I want to get back in there with King Cuerno, or like, oh, I would love to, get in there again with Pentagon? Like, was there anything that stuck out of your, like, almost anything that excited you now? Right? Because
yeah.
Your first couple of episodes, you were doing the same thing with the same couple guys. Now you're finally getting to branch out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, once we got in there a few times and you got to move around with people, yeah, you can feel like who's good. So El Mariachi Loco is Cholo's his student. So he trained him from the ground up. But he was amazing. They had him in like a goofy gimmick. It was kind of a gimmick that he would use on the indies, almost as a haha, like a joking gimmick. But they liked the gimmick, so of course they used it. He was good. He was fantastic to work with. I wish I would have did more with him. I mean, I really wanted to do more with Morrison because even in the tag match was the first time we ever touched, and he was excited. He was like, man, that was so much fun. Like, he kept telling me, and I thought, like, man, like, it would be great. Like, we're almost perfect for each other. Like, you're the flashy, arrogant, American and I'm like, you know, the opposite. So, you know, and then obviously Ricochet, because I had did some stuff on the independents with Ricochet maybe once, like in a 5-way, I think it was, like in Rhode Island. And the only reason why that sticks out was because we did a 5-way match. It was me, Ricochet, Swerve, and a couple other like local guys, but they were Spot Monkey guys, right? And the promoter comes to the locker room and says, "Hey, guys in that 5-way," and we were all like trying to put it together, you know. And he goes, "Just kill it, like do all the crazy stuff." He goes, "No roll up pins, or you know, no roll ups for pins or something." So what was every pin that we did?
It was a pin drill roll up. Yep.
A roll up, yes. So so I just remember that, you know, because like that's like the first time me, Swerve, and Ricochet, I think that was like the first time we ever touched each other in the ring. We did whatever, and then he goes, "Roll me up," okay. You know. And we did it. The whole match was all 5 pins were 4 pins was roll ups. So I mean, I didn't get I liked Pentagon and Phoenix, but I did not want to work with them because I worked with Pentagon later on, but those guys are the worst because they're the guys that feel like they can't do the match unless they do all their things that they do to everybody that A, don't make sense, B, don't look good, and C, they're not really out there to protect you in doing any of them.
Right.
So I didn't mind working Pentagon because he's a little more grounded, you know, and I trusted him, you know, I trusted him, but so that's why I ended up taking his package pile driver and he did the arm break thing with me later. But with Phoenix, I think he was more of a daredevil where everything was like, then maybe a dive. And I'm like, nah, you know, you don't need to, then maybe a dive. Like that's all you ever hear from him, you know. It's like, all right, we know that's your thing, but it doesn't always have to be your thing, you know, like not on match 2, you know, it doesn't need to be.
Have you watched any of their tag matches?
No, I can't watch that stuff, dude.
Okay,
Like,
so when they do their finish, right, it's a double stomp on the ass of that package pile driver.
right.
But
Which you know who they stole that from?
Who would that be?
Homicide and Low Key, the cop killer stomp.
Yep.
They did it to Jay Lethal in New York.
All right, I didn't even put that together. But anyway, and every time they do it, the other guy on the team is conveniently on the floor in a corner, so Phoenix can come and do the dive through.
Right.
But it's while the pins, so like he can't even let his tag team finish happen without him having to take away from it 100% of the time.
Yes. That's what I mean. Like I didn't mind Pentagon if I had to work with them, you know, so I would, but with Phoenix it was gonna be a whole nother headache, you know. So but all those guys were good. By that time, you know, we had who we had, and those were the people we were going with, and everybody was going to be good. But then again, like you're asking me, like, you know, I can make a good match with just about anybody. So, and I try to use that as I tried to make that my thing because I remember early on Chavo was like, yeah, like everybody wants to wrestle you. And I remember thinking like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh yeah, he goes, every time we bring up a match or something, the guys are like, oh yeah, you know, I'll work with Ricky or let me have Cortez, or when can I work with Cortez, you know? And that was like the thing. So I took a lot of pride in that because you know, I'm safe and guys wanted to do stuff with me, you know.
Sure. They wanted to have a good match where they knew they weren't going to get hurt.
Right. They wanted to have a good wrestling match was the key.
So I'm noticing now, um, like as I run through the lineup, I'm noticing that now once we get to week 10, it looks like you're getting another influx of talent.
Yeah.
Right? It looks like now you're getting Cage, and you're getting Angelico and Aerostar and Argenis, whatever.
Argenis, yeah.
How did were they working this out on purpose? I mean, obviously they were, but I mean, like, they had a rhyme and a reason to, we'll do this the first few weeks, and then we'll do this the first few weeks, the next, and then so like what do you think the strategy was there?
Well, like I said earlier, in like the first or second episode we did on this, I think DJ and them did every 10 weeks. Like they booked 10 weeks out. So I think that they kind of made it where every 10 weeks they were going to shake stuff up. So yeah, I did notice as we were getting going, like that's when they were starting to sign guys like Cobb and Cage, like American guys, and then we were getting in. Then we were being told, "Oh, the Talia's coming in, and Jack Evans and Angelico, they're coming in as a team." So there was all these, they were popping in throughout the season. I think from the Mexican side, when they had issues or guys maybe were unhappy, they were like, "Hey, we're going to end up sending you to Lucha Underground," because a lot of them were asking to come to Lucha Underground, a lot of the Mexicans. And I think they used that as negotiations for getting talent to sign with AAA was, "Oh, well, we can always send you to Lucha Underground." So that was a big thing for them.
So the next thing I see here, right, is it seems like you guys are now starting to pick up steam. You're starting to pick up some wins. And it starts in a tag match with you and Cisco versus Pimpinella and Masquerita Sagrada.
Yeah.
All right. Sagrada's the mini, correct?
Yes.
And Pimpinella is an Exotico, correct?
Exotico, right.
Would you like to explain to the people at home? I mean, the mini, that's pretty self-explanatory. Would you like to explain to the people at home what an Exotico is? Remember, we want people to watch us again next week. So
yeah. So an Exotico is a man wrestler dressing and acting like a female wrestler. Pimpy has been doing it for decades now and still is, I think. The thing about that was I think they had both of them there pretty regularly, and that was the match where they needed to be like beaten and then they needed to go away. Okay. So I think that's the picture where I'm like choking Pimpinella with the stick, like in a camel clutch version type thing. Or I remember somebody at the gym told me one time, like, "Is that your grandma you're choking the shit out of?" And I was so they needed, like the exiting beat down, like we haven't seen them since the crew beat them up, type of moment. So I think that's what that was, because they had them there pretty regularly, and DJ was like, what the fuck am I supposed to write for these guys? He's like, he's a mini and he's an Exotico. Like, I can't put him in title matches, like their haha comedy match 1 and 2. Like, that's it. Like, they've ran their course. So that was our instructions on that. They were like, they need to go away. So make this a moment where you're going to make them go away. And we were like, all right, cool. So we just beat the shit out of them.
Pimpinella is an older person, right?
Right.
How was their work
Pimpy was not good. Mostly because of his age. Nice person backstage. It or they or whatever.
They, they.
They they uh everybody liked Pimpy, you know. I mean, believe it or not, we didn't hang out much. We traveled in different circles. But Pimpy was good. I mean, for what they did, they were over as characters on television. They loved to, when Pimpy came out, the crowd came unglued because they knew what they were going to see. And then, like Bruce Pritchard says, the bell rings, right? So all the partying and celebration ends. So,
what was Pimpy's reaction when you told them that you were gonna wear his ass out with a kendo stick and then stick it in his mouth and choke him out?
Yeah, surprisingly, everyone's a pro, right? They knew that I'm safe, and so I kind of explained to Pimpy, like, if you lay flat, I can hit mostly the mat here and protect you. If you start squirming around, it's gonna suck, for you. So, they did their job, whatever, and then, how I'm not gonna take advantage of anybody in there. So I made sure that I just made it look good, and so forth. That's the stuff you learn doing TV. That it's more the wind up than the connection, right? It's more like the delivery. So with that being said, I knew that I was gonna, be beating the shit out of him for a little bit. So I told the camera guy, I'm like, hey, on the floor, I had a couple camera guys that I knew and I talked to regularly, just because of something I was doing. I would always, hey, when I'm doing this, like, where can you shoot to maybe not get that totally, because I'm going to try to protect this person. And they really appreciated that, because I don't know if they knew how to shoot that type of stuff unless we sat there and figured it out together.
Right.
So I always try to make it look as good for me as possible for what I'm doing. And a lot of times they were just like, well, I'll come over here and I'll just shoot you, And I was like, oh, okay. He goes, they may cut to another camera, so that's fine. But the angle that I would get where I can see you're protecting them, I can just shoot you. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. He goes, and then that'll fix that. So, I was trying to be as professional as possible from all aspects, and really learn another aspect of our business, right? Like shooting TV, like, talking to Stryker and Vampiro, like, hey man, in this match, I'm going to do this. Can you say something about, this and that? Oh yeah, man. And Stryker loved it. He was like, fuck, this is great. Like, I was making his job easier,
Right.
And he would tell me all the time, nobody does this. And then I started like listening to him more often. And I'm like, man, he's really putting me over in these matches. Like Stryker would go above and beyond to make sure that they knew who Cortez was and what it meant, and what I was doing in there. And I think it was because I was one of the, if anyone besides maybe Morrison, that went to him and Vampiro and would put my, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to watch out for this, or
this is how to get me over.
Yeah, they basically right, yeah. And I tell guys that in seminars too. I tell them, hey, if you're going to go try out for MLW, go talk to the commentators. They don't fucking know you or care to know you unless you give them stuff that they can sound smart with and doing,
Right.
And I remember learning that I remember the first time TJP went to TNA, I think it was like in 2004. He was like, so I went up to Mike Tenay and he was like, hey, I know you're the whatever professor, whatever. He goes, but I wanted to give you some rundown on my information. And he like grabbed a piece of paper and was like, yeah, absolutely. Anything. Like, and started like putting himself over, and and then I was like, wow, what a great idea. Like, do people do this to Jim Ross or not? Like, like how are these people not communicating,
I've had, on the other side of that, I've had two guys come over to the commentary table now with a fucking card already filled out, typed, okay, of where else they've worked,
Yeah.
what their stuff's called, what title what titles they've won, and it just like, it's like, oh, okay, cool, thanks.
Thanks, right.
Right. Like I now have something to say about you. I don't have to read off this card verbatim.
No.
But as a color guy, I can get into something of your stuff organically now.
Right. Of course.
And
right.
And it makes doing that much easier. And also, like you said, if everybody went and talked to a camera guy, we wouldn't be catching 30 blade jobs on TV a night.
Yes.
It's
yeah.
It's all but nobody really thinks like that anymore. But I think, Rick, we're gonna stop here for tonight, right? Because then we can pick up next week with the crew's first trios win, and then maybe get into what we're supposed to be the trio's plans for the crew.
Yes.
And how falling off the fourth rung of a ladder may have drowned those plans. So, do you have anything else?
No, that was it. I mean, like, we all get to learn different stuff at different times, but I know that, like, when I did seminars and stuff, I try to include a lot of my Lucha Underground learning, just because it was so beneficial to me. Because, like, when you do get to go to WWE and you're an extra, people act like that's some sort of badge of honor, and it's not. You can't hang your hat on the fact that WWE calls you because they're in your part of the country, because you can't learn nothing because you're not supposed to be there. Right. The idea is to make it like everywhere you go is a WWE, and you work that way, and you take the business that serious that way, and you can learn from all aspects of the business. Like, that's why I went ahead and did those things in Lucha Underground that nobody else was doing, and in return, those experts, cameras, a commentator, Melissa, even like the ring announcer, interactions with them, like, hey, I'm going to do this. Is that all right? What do you think? And be an open book. So you can learn something, maybe Melissa doesn't like that stuff. Maybe she does. Maybe she's like, I don't want to be a focused part of the show.
Right.
But she already was. So what little interaction I had, I did talk to her about it later. Like, hey, every now and again, if I'm in there, can I give you like a look? Maybe you and me do like a little stare down, and she's like, oh, fuck yeah, that sounds like fun. Like, yeah. And then I said, then let the writers do their magic. I don't know, maybe something will happen, whatever. Or one day I swing.
As you can and hope something grows.
Right. Yeah. But like, maybe I swing the stick and you both duck one day, and then maybe you stand up to me and I back down. I mean, we had toyed around with stuff like that. Right. But like, that's how things start to evolve, and grow. So, and it's a TV show, right? So like, whoever's doing that with you guys has the right mindset, because you can look at it one of two things, like, oh, it's just an indie, I shouldn't care about this stuff. Or you can look at it as, hey, I want to make sure that I'm protected, or I'm put over, or whatever, or I'm at least professional enough to say that I thought about this shit and I'm bringing it to your attention. And in return, you're going to kick back and you're going to have that stuff to make that person grow, right? On your, and it only helps you because it's your show, it's your product. you know, how good is this guy? Well, let me fucking tell you how good he is because you have a card from him telling how good he is, right?
Right.
I mean, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with this.
Let me tell you how smart this guy is. He went to college, and I know which one it is because it's on this piece of paper that he handed me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's you know, I mean, like you said, it's not everyone thinks that way anymore, and they should because kind of everything is on quote unquote TV or streaming now, right? So shouldn't you guys be doing that everywhere you go?
I am. I want to say I'm surprised, but I'm not. But I should be. I should be surprised by since we've started doing commentary there. The amount of people who have not come up to me to be like, hey, when I do this, it's called this, or ask me to put something over, or whatever. It shows me that they all have the mindset of indie wrestling is just random cold matches,
Right.
right? And then there are some of them who are into like, you know, we try to do the storylines and the programs and stuff because it makes it more appealing. You know, it makes like who wants to come watch 100 cold matches? I know I don't.
No.
So, but the guys who are into them when we're doing them with them, you can tell. But I'm very surprised by the amount of guys that haven't come over and been like, "Hey, man, call this." There are also other guys who they watch it, right? Because they'll come up to you and be like, "Oh man, when you said this, like that was great, thanks." You know, so but it's that to not have input on the person who's having input on what you're doing to me is wild. But I'm not surprised.
Yeah, like you're like narrating their story and it's like they're not even telling you what they want said or the high spots that they want highlighted. Like I don't know. Like I mean, I used to ask Stryker, like, hey man, what'd you think of tonight? You know? And he's gonna give me an honest opinion because the one time he tried, oh bro, you're great. I said, stop.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear that shit, bro. I need you to tell me what the fuck I need to do to make our show better. And then he looked at me and was like, I can respect that. He goes, what if you did this here? Give this a little more time to breathe. Let me put you over. And I said, that's what I need to hear. I don't know how to wrestle on TV. You know why? Because I don't wrestle on TV. You know? So when I started to communicate with Stryker more, he was giving me, I didn't need to know that my suplex was great. I need to know how much time I need to let that breathe so he can tell people about how good my suplex was that they just saw and why it hurts so bad. You see the difference? Like, yeah, like he thought I was asking for him to put me over. And I'm like, no, you know, we need to make this product the best that we can. And I don't know if everybody else did that. I know that I did that. And I know because of my relationship with Homicide and Low Key, and they trained Stryker that he, you know, he had a connection with me and was always going to have my back. And, you know, I had known Vampiro for years, you know, and I would ask him like, hey, what should I do? What should I, you know, and then when we get to the 5-0 street fight, Vampiro's like, all right, man, this is it, right? You ready? Like, this is, you know, this is the match, you know? And that was a big deal for me because how many of those matches that Vampiro had, you know? Like, he's like, this is the one you cut loose and all that crazy shit you don't do, you do tonight, you know? And I'm like, okay, cool, man. Like, and, you get color, you doing this, like, is there a spot over here? You guys should do something, right? And he would give me ideas, you know? And it's like, man, like, you know, at this point, I'm like, what, 16 years in? And I'm still learning, right? Because this is doing it in television is different, you know? So
that's great. I can't wait till we get to the 5-0 street fight because I produced an entire match here a few months back based off of one spot in the 5-0 street fight. So when you dumped the hot coffee down his tights,
yeah,
right? And then we were getting to a blow-off matchup here with Grammar Cop's new character, Phil Cardigan, who gets his like superpower from drinking coffee, and his opponent, Kip. And we were getting to a blow-off, and I was trying to think like what we can do that's different. And I was thinking about the 5-0 street fight, and then I said, we're going to have a coffee bar brawl, right? And I went out and I bought all these gimmicks. Like I set up like if you've ever been someplace where they're like they're giving you the sales pitch for a timeshare.
Yes. Yeah.
Like a little table with coffee on it and donuts, refreshments, and different kinds of tea and shit like that. And dude, this thing, I'm gonna send you the YouTube video of it.
Yes, please.
So perfectly. Those two guys did a great job. But anyway, this is where we're stopping. We're an hour and 5 in. We're gonna pick up next week with you guys starting off in some trios matches, and then we're gonna get moving here on season 1 and start working our way into season 2. And then eventually we're gonna probably mix some VPW into this.
Yeah, hopefully, yes.
All right, sounds good to you?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good to me, Mother Fluxers. I hope it sounds good to you. And we'll catch you all next time. This has been episode 62 of Podfluxxx, and we are out of here.